Hi, I'm Edlyn Diego, and I'm an associate professor at Cal Lutheran University. I'm also the director of the Autism and Communication Center, which is a university center that focuses on inclusion, communication access, and higher education for people with autism or autistic individuals. This is my son, Diego Pena. He is doing a cameo today, and Diego would like to introduce himself using the letterboard since he is non-speaking. So he has his communication partner with him, and they're going to spell out something.
H-E-L-L-O-A board L. Hello all. Okay, back straight and L. M Y my N going A M E I S D I E. Eyes on your board, buddy. Got this. G O. Hello all, my name is Diego.
Awesome. So just a little bit about Diego. He is going into 7th grade. He's fully included in general education, and he is a presenter at conferences and a best-selling book author of the book Anatomy of Autism. So that is us, and we're excited to be here. So Diego is really excited to talk about inclusion, not only in his book, but also share his thoughts. And I think this is so important in relation to the Americans with Disabilities Act, because it provided an avenue for inclusion in the community and higher education, employment. And as a young activist, Diego has experienced inclusion in schools, so he wanted to share some words that he typed out, and he's going to share them through his iPad, which he calls his talker.
I think the culture of inclusion is important to have in order to implement strategies to be successful for autistic students in a general education classroom. Without inclusion, I wouldn't be able to be in general education setting. Having autism has limited me both verbally and physically. I thankfully have access to communication by typing, and this form of communication has given me opportunity to be included in general education classes and activities in the community.
So the first time I really learned about the Americans with Disabilities Act was when I was researching what it would take to support my son Diego. He's autistic, and you just met him, to go to college, essentially. When I learned he had autism, I really didn't know anything about whether or not people had access to college, if they had the diagnosis of autism, if what the precedent was for that. So I really started looking into it, and I did learn that yes, autistic students do go to college, which is wonderful. At that time, this was, when Diego was diagnosed, this was 8 years ago or 10 years ago, and there wasn't a lot of research out there on autistic students going to college. So that was one area where I'm excited that I've been able to do research and publish some work on how we can support autistic students to go to college and become successful. But really the ADA is so important for autistic students and students with disabilities in general, just to make sure that they have access to academic programs, that they're getting accommodations that they need to be successful in the academic setting. So I really feel that the ADA has been a key factor in making sure that students with disabilities are included in college and university settings. Certainly, the ADA has provided a lot of opportunities for students with disabilities, and so I'm grateful for that. I think there are some areas that we need to think about that the ADA does have some limitations. One of them is that many disability service offices on campuses at higher education institutions require a diagnosis or a documentation of like neuropsychological evaluation, and this can cost upwards of several $1,000s for individuals to get this diagnosis. So I think there's been a lot of progress lately where those offices are saying, okay, we'll consider the IEP document, your individual education plan from high school, as a form to validate that you do need services. But one thing we need to work on a little bit more is making sure that higher education institutions, specifically the disability offices, are a bit more flexible in making sure that students can receive accommodations without dropping $3,000 or $4,000 in order to do that. The other thing that I think about a lot is while the ADA does provide important accommodations that are reasonable and appropriate to students, I think that what I've learned is universities and the disability offices specifically do a much better job when they go above and beyond the ADA. So what's mandated or required by the ADA, usually I see faculty members, the staff on campus, going above and beyond to make sure that students feel included, that they feel, that students feel like they belong on campus. And it's really important, I think I've learned that, we have these great laws, but it's also important for us to have compassion, flexibility to accommodate individuals like my son Diego, who uses, must have a communication partner with him, uses an iPad and a letterboard to communicate. And we're finding that many colleges are providing the accommodation and some are not because this is so new to them. So I think that all of those things are important, especially for students of color or historically marginalized students who have intersectional identities with disabilities. We need to make sure that we're providing welcoming and accessible environments in higher education. So I think that one of the important things I've learned in my work, so the scholarship and the advocacy work I do and the everyday interactions I have with faculty and staff in higher education settings in particular, is that we know that these disability support offices are mandated to provide accommodations according to the ADA, but yet what I see a lot is that faculty and staff are not required to receive training or professional development in order to serve students with disabilities. And if you think about this, 1 in 10 students in college campuses have a disability of some sort, and those are only the ones that are documented. So imagine those who don't report having a disability. But we do need all faculty, instructors, staff to have more knowledge, experience, tools in their toolkit to serve students with disabilities so that we can fully include them, make sure they're successful, and empower them to graduate with college degrees so that they can move on to employment opportunities in the future.